Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the March 12th meeting of Town Government Structure and Administration Committee to order. This is approximately 7:30 on Tuesday the 12th. My name is Frank Kemp. I'm chairman of the Tgs&A committee. And what I'd like to do is, for the purpose of our cameraman, who is John Amorakis this evening. John, if you could pan around as we all introduce ourselves for the adoring public.
Will Cusack, District 2.
Catherine Bailey, District 3.
Casey McSarry, District 1.
Derek Lover, District 1.
Harry McLaughlin, District 5.
Rob Werner, District 6.
Vincent Argenbub, District 2.
And now our distinguished guests.
Yeah, I'm Mac Patrick. I'm chairman of District 5, and I'm also chair of Public Health and Safety. We're also we're secondary on the ordinance. That's why we're here.
And thank you for coming tonight.
No, thank you.
I'm Monica McNally, District 2. I'm Chairman of Public Works, and we're primary on this ordinance.
And we're in the introduction phase, John. So give your name, rank, and serial number for the camera.
John.
You can do better than that.
Citizen.
What district are you in?
John Bolton, District 5.
There you go. I'd also like to especially welcome Mr. McSarry,
Thank you.
who is due any day right now.
Thank you very much.
And I think we set a record for the most junior person at a committee meeting.
Thank you.
So glad you're here. You should have two handouts. One is under the agenda for this evening, and then the other one we'll talk about later. It's kind of yet another draft of our ordinance that was printed up this afternoon. We won't talk about that until later on. Following the agenda, we have a copy of the minutes of February 25th, right in the package here. Does anybody have any additions or corrections? And if not, we're going to get a motion to approve it.
Motion.
You're going to make your own motion, and second, and all in favor of approving those minutes.
Which minutes?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Which minutes?
Right in the package. Page 2.
I abstained from the motion for the last one.
In terms of the thank yous that go out, I think we all should thank Bill Cusack, who is our clerk, who has the toughest job in the group. So that was item number 1. Item number 2. Messages from the public have continued to come in and have been posted up to the Tgs&A cloud. I hope that you've had a chance to sample them. They have been primarily in favor of the ordinance, but there have been some objections, probably about 5 or 6 among the 60-some that have been received. Most of the objections are from merchants in town who are concerned about the way the ordinance is implemented. Some of them have a good fix on what the specifics are in the ordinance, and others don't. They are just sort of general broadsides against with concerns. None of the ordinance, none of these comments, as you've spot checked them, have too much to do with what we're involved with, which is the wording of the ordinance and its provisions. Most of them are for the general sentiment that for the environment, the plastic bags ought to be banned, and that's about it. So as far as our purposes are concerned, I would say that the 60 notes have not been all that productive. They've been earnest and heartfelt, but they haven't been technically oriented, as was the public hearing. If you looked at the tape, many of you were there that night, but the comments that we received, how many people came to I've forgotten the number, 30-some spoke.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't know.
around 30 people had a chance to take advantage of the 3-minute target that they could speak. And most of them were of how I just characterized it, very enthusiastic about the ordinance, but shy on the details that were available at that time. Does anybody have any other observations on the public comments?
Well, just what you said, that we're not really getting a lot of feedback because of all they're talking about is the plastic bags. Our committee kind of took that to heart. I mean, we're of the mind that we don't, our committee doesn't really want to get into the weeds of a 10-cent fee, of managing the content of paper bags that are supplied by, we just want retailers, if they want to give out a paper bag, that's fine. And I think that's what a lot of the public is they're
Or they haven't, or to flip the, they haven't commented, or they really haven't. The bulk of the the bulk of the comments are sincere and heartfelt, but not necessarily devoted to the technical aspects of what the ordinance is. It's on the table.
So the RTM email box was open until March 1st, and we had 69 letters come in that were positive in nature, and 12 that came in that were, I would put it as not supportive, and 5 or 6 that explained why they were positive or negative. Most of the time, 3 of them were positive, 2 were negative, but they also had concerns. And I think those concerns were voiced after going to the public hearing or watching the public hearing and seeing the scope of this ordinance and how it will touch many people more than just not taking a plastic bag out of the grocery store.
And then in the last couple of weeks, Monica and Jamie Stevenson and members of the Public Works team have interviewed merchants and found that many of them are not really well informed of what the ordinance is.
Right. I personally interviewed 11, either by myself or with Jamie, and I would say that thankfully 3 of them are already compliant. They happen to have a bag that is of the right recyclable content, that kind of thing. But that was by luck. I would say out of the 11 that I talked to, 2 were what I would consider kind of well versed in this, and the rest were not as informed as they probably are now, because there's been more information coming out. So.
Monica, can you recall of the 11 interviews, how many of them were the store owners in contrast to the store manager and the person who's in charge?
I would say I probably spoke with actually owners, maybe 4 people. But some, I spoke to Brooks Brothers. I don't think that I'm ever going to get an interview.
You didn't talk to Mr. Brooks?
Yeah, I didn't get a hold of Mr. Brooks or Mr. Brothers.
He was elsewhere.
Yeah, Jay McLaughlin, same thing. Talked to the manager, and I think that's as high up as somebody walking in off the street is going to get it.
Topic number 3 on our agenda is other material that's available through the cloud, or it's actually up at the state. As we're aware with different press releases and what's the good newspaper in Hartford? The Current. Occasionally we'll run an article on the status of the legislature, and if I may summarize it, it's a potpourri of bills that have been introduced. I think it's up to 15, 19 different bills. Some of them are well fleshed out. Some of them are, one-liners that a representative wants to put in as a placeholder that will be fleshed out. My primitive understanding of how and they all wind up in the Environment Committee. So my primitive understanding of how that works is that the Environment Committee will hear testimony on the market basket of bills and then decide as a committee which one or which ones they will take under further consideration and staff and fill out, so that many of these placeholder bills may fall by the wayside. And then other bills that we actually see coming out of the legislature will be a consolidation of some of the others. That's my understanding of it.
Did the governor propose anything?
Say again?
Did the governor propose anything?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yes, it did, because the governor put one in as well.
Got it. That was
As
the
I
last
recall,
one.
that it's a 5-cent charge on plastic with the revenue to go to the state.
It's a lot of those types of bills.
To summarize it, he would be doing that.
So I forgot the name of the woman that's the co-chair of the environmental committee, but the last that I've read, the last that I've seen that's been available is that public hearings will start in mid-March, which is pretty much, right around the corner. So that's all I know about it.
And there's a date that the legislature has to finish by, and I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly what it is. There are people who know it by heart, but it's in early June. And the way it works is at midnight that night, this legislature is dismissed. So that anything that is on the floor at that time that has not been up for a vote dies and has to be reintroduced next year. So it presents an interesting issue for us as we work towards getting a bill for our own legislature. There may be a strategy that we're looking at. We mentioned it before, is that we're very close to completing our charge. We're very close to completing our mission, is to get a bill that will go onto our floor, whether it be voted up or voted down. We'll have to await that. It's quite possible that if the state is on the cusp of passing legislation that would affect would overshadow our legislation, it's quite possible that someone would raise up and say, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to table this issue until a date certain, sometime in September, and then let the state play through. And then in September, you don't have the table, but it's tabled until a date certain. Then when that date certain comes along, if the state has done something, then we pull it off the table and file it. On the other hand, if the state does not do anything or does something that is at a lower level of precision than what we would like to do, we can pull it off the table at that point and then put it up for action. That thought is that we probably don't want to not waste time, but enact something that would be not in conflict or be overshadowed by what the state is going to do. That may be our workaround, because I really like to be able to say to the RTM, we've completed our work, we have a bill, and then leave it to a certain amount of strategy as to whether the bill comes onto the floor or not. That's one man's opinion on how that might work, and keep everybody happy, because we wouldn't want to pass, I don't know if you get that. Item number 4, we have a draft of our ordinance, which you all have contributed to, and our colleagues in Public Health and Safety and Public Works have reviewed at various points and sent in their suggestions as well. In our package, which you see right behind the agenda, set this other one aside for the moment. But in the thing it says 1 of 24. We have our minutes on page 2. Page 3 are minutes from Public Health and Safety's last meeting, where you can see that they voted. Max, you want to take us through that? My eyes are. But this is minutes from Mac's meeting on February 25th.
Yeah, our real only, we're all in favor of a ban on the thin plastic bags, but we voted specifically on the 10-cent charge, and we voted 6 voted in favor of keeping a charge in the ordinance, and 8 were against it.
Okay,
Was there a reason?
I
What was
think-
the discussion like?
I think the discussion, I may have mentioned earlier, but I think the feeling among the majority was that we just don't want to be involved. You know, let the owners of the stores decide if they want to charge for a bag like they do now. You know, they just bake it into their cost. And our thought was just let that play out, as opposed to making a mandatory charge that every store has to charge a bag, you know, when they're handing something out.
How would that affect the big box retailers versus the smaller retailers?
Well, I think that's what they're doing now. I mean, you go into Heights Pizza, and you know they put your stuff in either a plastic bag or a paper bag. They don't charge you for it, and I think at the stores like Stop and Shop, they now have a 10-cent bag that they charge for. It's what is it? How many mils it is? 3 mils, and that's what they provide. And that's probably what they would provide if you go in there without your own bag.
But right now, they still give out a free bag.
Right.
But if you want to buy a reusable bag, it looks like this, and it'll cost you 10 cents.
I have a question about that, Monica, because I saw that display at the Stop and Shop, and it says that bag is good for 125 uses.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
And I can run a 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
yeah,
In a car.
It has a few, definitely has a few holes in it right now, but that's a 3 mil bag. So,
So, Matt, thank you for these are the minutes of our colleague. We have 2 colleague committees, Public Health and Safety, and we are co-equal, and Public Works is the primary committee. And so on page 4 of it, 4 and 5, we have the minutes of the last. We have the minutes of the February 26th meeting, and we had Public Works had a meeting last night. Monica, could you tell us a little bit about what happened at these 2 meetings to bring us up to date?
well, let's just worry about last night because that's the most recent, and that's what counts. So, so our committee is focused on, you're seeing this ordinance, and then I call it variables. There are variables in it, right? So there's this mill rate, right? It's it can be anywhere from, in the country, it's generally between 2 1/4 and 4. There are 26 states or 25 states that have an ordinance passed, and 25 of them have a mill rate of between 2 1/4 and 4. Connecticut.
You say mill rate, you mean the size of the bag?
The thickness of the
Yeah, I'm thinking taxes.
Yeah. I know. In both cases, high mill rate is.
John
what
missed
we
the
call it.
meeting where Rob has what is it, a micrometer?
I have a micrometer.
Wave the micrometer around.
Wave my micrometer.
Johnny would have enjoyed this because we went and measured a couple different bags.
Like,
You're gonna test that 3 mil bag, aren't you?
I am.
You could even pass it around. But anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
And that was funny, and I forgot where I was.
So we can send it down, Matt.
Oh, okay.
How many states are doing?
Right. So the majority of, actually all states, except for Honolulu and Hawaii. Honolulu is going to 10 mil in a year from January, so 21 or 20. So Connecticut at this point Greenwich has a 12 mil, and Stanford has, I believe, a 2 1/4, although there's talk that might be higher. Westport has a 2 1/4. Weston has a 4. Norwalk has a 12. So you can see that the mill rate for our ordinance will be on the high side, will be at the very high side. Our committee is in favor of the 12 mil rate. Another variable that I just grab it as a variable is the recycling content of the bags. And our committee is in favor of keeping the more stringent recyclable bag with 40% post-consumer recyclable material in it. I'm doing this off the top of my
An
head.
earlier draft we saw had taken that off.
Right, and that was the request was to put that back in. On the 10-cent charge, we did a sense of the meeting last night, and we had 5 people that were in favor of the 10-cent charge for a paper bag, and 4 people that were against the concept of requiring a store to charge for a paper bag. The feeling there was that stores should be able to make this decision on their own. On the flip side, the reason that is given for the 10-cent charge is because this ordinance is designed to, from the BYO group's point of view, to encourage people to bring their own recyclable bag with them. And if there is a charge, the feeling is that the default won't be, okay, I can't get a plastic bag, so I'll just take the paper bag, no big deal. So if there's a 10-cent charge, maybe it becomes something that inspires you to remember or to run back to your car and get the reusable bag. So does that make sense? That's the concept.
That's what we've been hearing for several months.
Okay, that's the concept.
That's exactly
Okay, because I wasn't sure if you.
what started this whole thing.
Okay.
All right, thank you. On our handout, after looking at the minutes from Public Health Safety and the minutes from Public Works, we move to the next couple of pages, which starts on page 6 and continues down to page 13. Now, this is a draft of ordinance which includes the changes that have been recommended to us. Since no one can look at these pieces of paper and determine what's changed, the next set of pages, which is pages number 14 through 23, is what our attorney friends call redlined or blacklined. They can't make up their mind as to what the terminology is. And you compare two, Rob, what is it, and Harry, what's the right term, redlining or blacklining?
Either one.
There you go. See how
Depends on
it's
your
a crisp
computer,
answer on either one. So this is a black-lined copy, and it might be it would be good for us to take a walk through that and raise questions as we go. Page 14 is you'll see this could have been printed in color, but it would have been very expensive to do so. So what you will see, if there's a vertical line out there on the left-hand margin, that area contains something that was changed. So on page 14, the little explanation of what draft 2.1 is, and but just a quick summary on the heading there at top of page 14. Might take a moment to look at that. Then we go down to actually page 15 is where the ordinance starts with the whereas clauses. You find some cosmetic things, formatting on page 15.
Do our ordinances normally have all this whereas stuff?
No,
Well, why do we have it?
because town attorney, town council, makes them up, formulates them prior to the ordinance coming over to be presented to the RTM. And in order to save some energy, in order to make his life easier,
Not have to explain.
we took the Stanford whereases and put them there. There's no original work in this. This is a claw over the Stanford whereases, just to make his life easier and to put this thing on wheels and get it on the road. When you look at our code of ordinances, whereases are gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Bottom of 15, some nice cosmetic changes down there. Page 16. right in there, the item charge and environmental charge, a goofus thing, we had the same paragraph twice. So nobody noticed it. So we got rid of 2.3. And then I caused the numbering. I know how that got in there, but I'm embarrassed that it didn't notice it before this. So that made the numbers change, that going down the line. Page 17 is just a formatting thing. Page 18. There's some clarification of what a product bag is, and you can see it. And then after that's out of the way, it was felt that in addition to dry cleaning bags, garment bags should be added. And that takes a certain amount of contention over stores selling garments wrapped in the bag. So that is a nice suggestion, and it's in there to make life a little bit easier. New number 210, yes.
So a garment bag isn't a bag that you put a garment in.
Louder because of
A garment bag isn't a bag that you put a garment in. A garment bag is, one of those bags that you buy a suit at Brooks Brothers. It has the zipper. That's the garment bag.
That's what I thought it was.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I thought you thought it was something different.
The new number 2.10, about recycled paper checkout bag. There you will see the take out and put back. We had taken out the 40%, most of and the name of the words reusable and recyclable. It was felt by our colleagues that ought to be back in. So
Why did we take it out? Do you remember?
Well, we were trying to simplify and sort of make life easier for people, but it was felt that by our colleagues that we'd simplified it too much by pulling
Group
it out.
had felt that it wasn't necessarily needed to be 40% post-consumable to be recyclable, that it could be recyclable, but not be 40%.
So,
Frank, just a clarification on the product bag at the top. So if you're in a deli and you order a sandwich and it's wrapped, probably the sandwich itself is in paper, but they can't put it in a paper bag, or if they do, or a plastic bag. Or they charge you for that.
yeah. My
and
opinion is that it has to do with the food down here,
Mhm.
and so that it wouldn't be part of this regulation if it has to do with wrapping food.
So it is exempt.
Yes.
Is that true?
That's
too?
not the way.
You do?
Yeah.
No, that's why I want to flush
Yeah.
this out.
That's not the way I read it.
Meat or,
Because that affects a lot of stores in
Yeah.
town.
yeah,
The product bag for food is more what you would, let's say that you go into the grocery store and you get a donut, right? And you go to that thing and you take the tissue, you put it in that little bag. That's a product bag, okay? You can walk out of the store with that. But if you put that product bag in another bag with all of your other stuff, then you're going to be charged 10 cents for that bag. Does it make sense?
So if I go to Uncle's and I buy a sandwich, and they put it in a paper bag, I'm gonna get charged for it.
Right, whatever they wrap it up in,
No, they'll wrap
Right.
it up, and
yes,
then they'll put it, so I'll buy two
Yes.
sandwiches, me and my wife. And if they put it in a paper bag, they're gonna
correct,
charge me for the bag.
correct.
Yeah, see, that's the kind of stuff our committee looked at, and we said, we don't want to get involved in that.
Yeah, I just want to be clear on this. They can't give you a plastic bag at checkout, even if you pay for it.
Right,
Okay, we all,
yes,
all right.
yes,
You get a paper bag and you pay for it.
right.
right,
Or you put
except
in-
for the implementation period, which we'll cut to.
Right.
Except for a crossover period.
So Lavala's would have to give you a paper bag, like Uncle's does.
Yeah, any of the stores,
Yes.
and you'd be charged for it, 10 cents, even though now they don't charge you.
No, I don't believe so. Like if it's Uncle's, you get your sandwich, they put it in a paper bag.
Yes,
That's not a checkout bag per se, is it?
Well, as John
Wrap
said,
the
this,
sandwich in paper,
I mean, this gets
and
kind of
then
crazy
put it
being
in-
talked
They put it in a bag like yay
I
big.
think that would be,
It's used by a customer at checkout
Yeah, that's
to
considered,
carry the product out of
yeah,
the
that's a
store.
part. That's a carryout bag.
Okay.
Now, I need a little clarification from our colleagues about this, what was the example, the donut or the slice of pizza that brought this up? Doesn't that fall into unwrapped prepared food or bakery goods? Isn't a donut a unwrapped prepared food?
Right, so you can take the donut and you can put it in that little bag in the store.
In other words, the list of exemptions here is okay. It's satisfactory.
Yes, as long as you understand,
That's what I love to hear.
But if
We
you
don't have
put-
to make another change.
right.
If
Okay,
you
good.
put that donut
in with your
in a
food.
bag to remove that donut from the store, then it is a checkout bag.
Right, so let's say you're at the thing, you open the glass case, you take the donut, you put it in that little paper bag they have right there, right?
That's product bag.
That's a product bag. And then you go to the checkout and you pay. You just leave, you don't pay the 10 cents. But let's say that you want to put that donut in a bigger bag, just because you want a bigger bag, you would pay for the bigger bag, okay?
Okay. At the bottom of page 18, we have some very nice lawyerly modifications of the written notices paragraph to make sure that that is done properly. I have no comment on it. I can't quite say that I understand it. I do understand it, and I think that the paragraph is better than what we found. Page 19, the nice phrase in section 3. As you can see, a lot of this stuff is technical and good. Page 20. As you can see from the vertical lines on C and D, there's been some fine tuning of, instead of a person has written the citation, then the business establishment. Okay. And in D, it's not the first selectman, it's the board of selectmen that will make the appointments, which is proper the way things are done.
Frank, can you remind me where we ended up with?
I'm sorry.
Can you remind me where we ended up on the plastic bags that person to person, et cetera, were handing out? Because I don't remember where we
All
ended
right.
on that. And then it says business establishments shall
okay.
provide or sell.
Okay, I'm going to go back.
This is
I need
except as
a
otherwise provided herein.
I need a reminder as
Yeah,
well.
just because it's.
Let's go back to 2.1, page 16, in the business establishment. Nonprofit is, after our discussion about whether nonprofit is in or out,
Yeah.
it's back in, has been in for the
Right.
last draft. And then down at the bottom, the last sentence covers what I regard as the person-to-person protection.
Okay.
The very last sentence, not the LBI sales tax as a sales and or by nonprofit
Okay. So
organization.
when we go to page 19, then they're
Yeah.
covered.
I was, just to recap, I was always interested in protecting person-to-person. And CC Mar and the whole staff is fully supportive of this, their Norwalk operation as well as the Darien, and they're fully on board. So I was trying to protect somebody who didn't want
So
protection.
either way, they're covered on.
But they still get it. They still get it in that final sentence.
Okay.
All right, back plowing on ahead. We're back into 20. C&D's got some good lawyering. And section 8 at the bottom of 20 and bleeding over to 21. It has to do with the procedures of somebody who receives a warning or citation to be properly treated by a hearing, by the hearing officer. To have everything done fairly. I think these are good suggestions. And that applies to paragraph D on 21 about how that hearing would be conducted. Now, on the bottom of 21, is section 9, new item D. And this was suggested by our colleagues in Public Works. Takes the credit for this paragraph. And this has to do with the cutover period, which is intended to protect the merchants who have a overwhelming supply of non-compliant plastic and paper bags. So that during a period of time, arbitrarily set as a year, to run off their supply of bags that were on hand. And upon further thought, this applies to stores, merchants, business establishments of less than 10,000 square feet. Aha, you will say. How do we understand the square foot issue? I'll direct your attention to page 24 of 24. Some very nice research was done for us by the town assessor's office, who has among their records a record of square foot of the business establishments. And we asked them to do a selection of the large stores, which you see at the top there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. By the way, we'd intended to have CVS on there, and CVS did not get included. But it's fair to assume that CVS is over 10,000. And then the smaller stores, and the 2 columns here. One is in alphabetical order, so if you want to look up your favorite establishment, on the left you can get it alphabetically. And then on the right-hand column, it's sorted around thanks to Excel, from large to small, in terms of the other business establishments, from the large ones in the 7,000 down to the very smallest one at 753 square feet. So with this information about the square footage of stores, merchants that we're interested in, as to whether they're in or out, the provisions of section 9, number D, come into focus as to why that provision is in there. Is not be hostile to or be unfair to the smaller merchants who may have the bags. Now the date of the effective date of this is often, you'll see in here, 6 months from the date of the passage, or 3 months from the date of the ordinance, or the enactment date. Best practices is put a specific date in the ordinance and don't do that 6-month business. So that's why in this draft, the effective date of this is page 23. Effective date is January 1st, 2020. And so the runoff date for the small merchant exclusion is a year later. That's just a date that was picked as a nice time to let them run off their stuff. These are small stores anyway. They're not on the target. They're not in the firing line of the big high volume 3 mil or 2 mil bags. It's just this sort of for keep peace in the household and let them go and use up the bags that they have if they have them. So that really brings us down through.
I have a question.
What's going on? I know you did, Rob. I'm so glad you're going to ask this question. What is it?
Well, my question is the last sentence where it says each business establishment must charge the environmental fee for all paper and plastic checkout bags. There is not an environmental fee for plastic checkout bags. Isn't that correct?
During the transition period, they should charge for both.
Right, but the environmental fee, as we've defined it earlier in this ordinance, refers to paper bags. So
And technically, it's an environmental charge.
okay, that too.
So, John, what?
It's technically an environmental charge, not an environmental fee. So we should change that word.
Yeah, I think we got that straight. I hope we got that straight.
Oh, it says fee.
It says, what does it say?
Bottom 21.
Page number,
21.
oh, in this paragraph.
Yeah. Just say charge, not fee.
Well, that's good.
Last line.
The very bottom sentence.
Yeah, we define it as,
It's defined terms, so it
Yeah,
should be
okay, we're good, yeah. Thank you. See how this is the John Bolton Memorial Correction.
My contribution to society.
Thank you. All right, I'm not answering that question
okay?
at the moment. And I'm going to direct your attention to this other handout. So we've been through all of this. Now, Public Works met last night, and again, they issued some very good corrections to what we had. Where we were just looking through 2.1, and this other handout is 2.2. Hot off the press, copied up for us this afternoon. Just so we aren't changing anything like a sleight of hand or some sort of magic, watch how my fingers don't leave my hand, sort of thing. Let's go through 2.2 quickly. Again, you will see a mark on the left-hand margin of things that changed. Clearly, the introduction page, page 1, has a little squib at the top to acknowledge that this is Public Works from both the 26th and from March 11th. Nothing going on until we get to page 3. There was a clarification at the end of 2.7, adding the words paper checkout bag does not include a product bag, and that is to bring that statement into parallel with 2.8, the final sentence on 2.8. A good housekeeping, a good addition. All right, with 4 and 5, there are no changes, and in 6, it's again, some good workmanship about the warning. The warning, it's not a warning notice, it's a warning. And then it's not a, then further down in 7, it's not a violation, it's a citation. These are good mechanical word changes. Page 7. A good catch here, and instead of carry out, it should be check out bags. Capital B on the bags, because it's a defined term. And that's it. That's the type of stuff that we're dealing with right now. Some very good changes to a highly technical ordinance, draft ordinance. Note that for the record, we mentioned this once every meeting, is that the TGSA committee does not write ordinances for the town. But we prepare the draft work, we submit it to the town council reviews it, and then adds the whereas if necessary, and sends it back to the rules committee, so that the rules committee can put it on the agenda for the RTM. What I'd like to do.
Can I go back before we get moving
yeah,
on?
get some other questions. And
I have
then
another question. I just wanted
Yes,
to circle
go.
back to clarify. So back to 210, the recycled paper checkout bag. Maybe I was not paying attention, but why was and has printed in a highly visible manner on the bag the words received or recyclable been added? What's the thought process behind that?
What page you on?
Definitions, 2.10, which
Yeah, either one.
I got page 4 here of the new one.
Okay.
2.2, page 4.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 2.10. The original template, this ordinance resembles a template that we received back in October, November. It had a very rigorous definition of recycled checkout bag. It included, I'm trying to remember where it was manufactured and the whole deal. It was then felt that was too rigorous and we dropped back. Our friends in Public Works put some stuff back here. The phrase you're talking about, I think, is that it says reusable and recyclable, is something commonly found on paper bags that comply. The printer, the manufacturer prints that on there, and in fact, a whole food bag, I don't think we have one right now, it's right up there. The Palmer's bag that is currently in use up there has no, it may be compliant, but it doesn't say it's compliant.
Why are we making life more difficult for the vendors by forcing them to buy a bag that has this splatter all over it?
Can I speak to that?
Go.
So your question's a great question. This verbiage is very common on a bag that is compliant. It's just standard language. So
Then why do we need it?
okay, so your question really maybe is, why do we need these restrictions on the type of paper bag?
No,
Is that?
the question, well, I don't see how that, I'm fine with up to the word recycle, 100% recyclable.
Uh-huh.
I don't understand why the bag needs to have this printed in a highly visible manner. It seems to me that would potentially restrict the number of bags, choices that the vendors would have to, for example, maybe Uncle's wants to buy smaller bags, not the Palmer's bags. I was just looking online and there are bags available that are recyclable. I don't know if they're the same content, I didn't get that far, but they didn't have. So I'm just saying that this to me would seem to be, if you've accomplished the goal of 40% and it's 100% recyclable, then this is more of a political statement than it is anything that impacts the use of the bag.
Right, and I see where you're going. The reality is, it's standard language, it's standard on that type of bag. When you pick up a bag that's recyclable and is made of that material, that the 40% post-consumer material, it will have this on there. The companies that make those bags, they want to say that. So this is not an imposition on the business. The concept of a recyclable and the 40% post-consumer, that is a different story. But this,
I'm not there.
yeah, this language is not, it's not gonna be a problem for the stores at all.
No, okay, I still don't agree that it needs to be there.
Okay.
If it's so standard, why
Why do
include
we
it?
need it?
It's like saying a car needs 4 wheels. Well, it's so
That's true.
standard, why would you say a car needs 4 wheels?
Okay,
Yeah.
good point.
Tell you what, I think there are probably some other items like this that will be discussed among the different committees before this thing goes forward, and I pledge I will take this one forward for you, okay? And we'll see what happens among the equivalent of a conference committee to sort these things out. That's a good point. We made the point that what we're doing is preparing a recommendation for town council in consultation with our colleague committees, which, as you've seen, have made some very helpful suggestions all the way. When we were at this point 6 years ago, we had 2 votes to be taken. I kind of thought that they did a good job 6 years ago. One vote of the committee was on the preparation of the document, you've all done a good job on, as to whether this document can go forward. The second vote was sort of a sense of the committee and a notation as whether people were in favor of it or not. And this really brings home the fact that our work quite frequently is done on a particular topic that we don't agree with, but our mission is to prepare a document that the RTM can use, whether we agree with it or not. So this second vote we may take this evening is a notation as to whether you're in favor of it or not. Now, when we do that second one, we'll ask for favor, ayes and nays, and abstains. because it may be that as this progresses over the next couple of weeks, you may still have an open mind to figure out what it is. So there's no shame in voting abstain when it comes to that. On that second one. On the first one, though, we've all been working on this. I hope you'll have an opinion on it. Mr. Secretary.
Before we go into votes, I have 5 things, just point, I don't know if they're being ticky-tack, but maybe they want to be further defined in the document. The first one is the word checkout. When you say checkout bag, this is in 2.2, it's page 3 of the smaller.
Be patient, let me catch up with you here. 2.2.
Say checkout bag, but then you're referring to checkout in the definition. I don't know if you want to define checkout. Maybe it's so obvious that people know what a checkout is. If that doesn't need any further definition, then I guess that's good.
Frankly, well, I'm not quite sure I follow you.
Do you want to write
If
begin
you
at the
could-
cash register?
I'm looking at 2.2.
Well, checkout, maybe it's obvious, but I'm just saying, when you use the word to define itself, then it just makes it a little confusing, so if it's obvious what a checkout is.
What
then
is, in 2.2?
2.2 means checkout bag means a carry bag used by customers at checkout. Well, what's checkout?
Well, fine, and just the
Point of
burden.
purchase.
Now, we failed to point out that Will is an attorney as well. So I'm going to ask you for your recommendation as to how it should be changed.
If it's obvious, but I don't know, I'm a picky person, but if it's obvious what a checkout is, then it doesn't need to be further defined.
No, I think I understand your pointing out the deficiency here, but I'm going to task you with solving the deficiency, because that's what I'm asking you.
Well, you can't say cash register.
Say cashier.
Place of purchase,
Point
Point
of
of
point of
point of
purchase.
purchase, that could be a
Mhm.
point of sale, POS system.
So would you just put that in parentheses next to checkout?
I think a point of sale is actually something else.
So point of purchase.
Yeah.
I love this, Gentlemen, you figure this out. I'm willing to do.
I'm in favor of checkout, so.
Okay.
I think it's overkill.
Yeah,
It's fine.
I was just asking.
So we agree to leave it alone?
Sure.
All right.
The second one would be environmental compliance officer. You use that as in the definition to define itself. Maybe change that to act as a person who shall be responsible.
I don't see any objection to that. In other words, you're saying instead of the town, strike the town official?
Town officials designated by the Board of Selectmen to act as a person who shall be responsible.
Yeah, you're kind of, I can see your point, you're kind of circular.
Yeah.
In computer lens, we have like a circular cell.
Loop,
Yeah.
a loop.
I read it as the person appointed to be the environmental. If you, so that's really what it
But then,
is.
Okay.
And then that person who, having that title, does these things.
Will, do you agree with Rob?
I would say put just a person to act as a person, to act as the person or a person who shall be responsible.
All right, I'm going to send this over to you and mark it on there and I'll
When you
defend.
volunteer things in this committee, you get to do it.
Yes, right. I'll defend your right to do the end. Okay, just make the correction there and I will apply it to this, unless there's any objection. Now, Will, you're one for 2.
1 for 2.
You want to go for 3?
I'm going to go for 3.
All right.
In section 8B, the second paragraph of that section, compliance officer, if he finds, you might want to put he, she, or they, because if the
All right. wait a minute.
compliance officer is female,
Isn't that spelled out somewhere in the ordinances, you know, the definition of
Gender
he?
neutral. Yeah. But if we can make the change.
I don't know. It's,
I totally agree with
if it's on other ordinances,
Right.
then
Yeah. Well, no, I think you should still.
right, in what we
It's
do.
more
in-
inclusive.
Why don't you say if the officer finds?
Yeah.
Yeah, if the officer finds that,
Gender
then,
neutral.
then the officer, or decision if the officer, you can put the officer instead of he.
Okay.
First of all, if people understand what he's talking about, and then are you in favor of it?
You replace he
You know,
with the
my
officer.
company literally got into big media, not big, but there's enough of us, something got out loose in Zurich about gender neutral pronouns. That they literally sent out an email to the whole company saying that this is not, they had to clarify their intent that
Well,
we're not proscribing how you have to talk.
I think Mac is right, that somewhere in the ordinances it does defang this issue. But I also agree that if we can just get it right in here, then. All right,
but just
you're 2 for 3.
2 for 3.
Got another one?
Don't know if you even want to go with this, but just lawyerly, warning and citation are capitalized without being defined.
You're right, because I've always been aware that there's some non-capitalized things lurking around in here. If you found another one, I appreciate
Wouldn't
the
that be
market.
part of the code overall?
Pardon me?
Wouldn't that be part of
Are
the
they
overall
defined
code?
under?
Yeah, but if it's a defined term, you want to.
No, but I mean, I would think that somewhere, it kind of goes back to is it gender
Right.
specific or neutral? Wouldn't somewhere in the code of ordinances say ordinance and warning? I don't know.
Maybe.
I mean, why do we have to redefine every ordinance?
You would hope. I don't know.
If it's defined elsewhere, then I don't have an issue. So I'll remain at 2 for 3.
Well, all right, but of those 2, mark them prominently, and then I'll fold them in here to the master. Other questions here about, because I can't tell you how much I appreciate the toss-ins, yeah. Harry, if you hadn't been out of the country for so many weeks, I know you would have been in the fray.
I think Harry's here all over, you just told you he's out of the country.
Well, Harry helped out so much on the blight ordinance. It was really a thing of beauty, how that thing got tuned up, and so Harry's good work. So, every time, well, listen, everybody has made their contribution. Pending any other discussion, would it be fair to somebody to make a motion that this version 2.2, which with a couple of changes will become 2.3, would be forwarded to the Public Works Committee for further consideration and eventually forwarding to the attorney for finalization?
What are the couple of changes?
The changes that
Yeah, that would be.
that we just agreed to, plus the bottom of page 7, making a fee, a charge, or
Right.
something else that we had. No, it was the thing that I promised to carry forward for you. We didn't actually change that. The things we just discussed. So would someone like to make a motion to that effect, that we have completed our work and that we're going to forward this on? Come on, Harry, make a
So
motion.
moved. So moved.
All right.
Second.
Are you the second or you're the clerk? Can a clerk?
Can I do it?
Can you
Yeah.
clerk second?
I'll leave that up to someone
Yeah,
else.
let's get
then.
some, yeah, we got a new blood in this thing.
I'll second.
Very good, Rob, this is good to do. All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Oh, you can't vote anyway.
No.
I was looking at you, you weren't voting. All right, I think it was unanimous. Wasn't
No.
it? Wasn't unanimous.
Yeah, I want that part taken out.
All right. Let's,
You bet.
no, let's go back, because I want, listen, I want to make it unanimous.
Well, you
So,
can't-
can we go back and
Part
talk?
about the
Let's go back and talk.
I'm not, I don't necessarily think that it's TGS&A's job to take it out, but I can't support it with it in it.
Cite me the
Or
paragraph.
you want me to abstain? I'll abstain.
No, I don't want you to abstain. I want you
I
to
think
support
I'll
this
abstain.
thing. And I want you to support this at the sacrifice of making another change.
No, I'm not gonna, you shouldn't make the change.
No, but see, at that point, we hadn't made any changes. Now we've got a couple of changes. We might as well have a market
Might as well
basket
clean it all up.
and clean it all up. Now, give me the paragraph.
2.10.
2 point,
2.10.
John, tell me what it is. Tell me,
Page 4.
tell us again. Where
Page 4.
Say again?
Page 4. It's paragraph 2.10.
Removing the reusable and recyclable, correct?
Ending the.
Period after recyclable, 100% recyclable, period.
John, could you explain that change to us, and then we'll note it on the what is becoming the master over there?
I would support it if we eliminated the requirement that it be printed in a highly visible manner on the bag towards reusable and recyclable.
All right. I could support that, not only to buy his vote, but I'd also take it to the committee, and if they see it another way, they can see it another way, but at least coming out of our committee.
I mean, my rationale
That's fine.
behind it again is I think that this is gonna create enough issues for the local merchants, and this is just one less thing that they would have to worry about.
Does anybody have any objection to placating John on this?
If you put it that way, I'm
Are we okay?
We don't know 100%, it's possible that it will be printed anyway.
It will
if
be.
it meets certain requirements,
It's
or it may not.
behavioral
So it's really-
economics.
Okay.
They all print it because
So
it
then we
makes
can take it
people
out.
feel
It doesn't
good.
really-
So
Then you don't need it.
that's fine.
All right, now, thank you, Will, for making these marks, because then I'll include them in version 2.3 later tonight. So, Harry, would you make your motion again? Do you remember what it was?
Subject to the change Mr. Bolton recommended the ordinances marked up be approved and forwarded to Public Works.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Do we have votes in favor of that or favor of that motion?
Yes.
No.
Did you want something?
I detect,
It should be visible.
I detect that it was a unanimous
It will
vote.
not be an election issue next year, I can tell you.
Oh.
Good.
Yeah.
State's gonna change its name.
Thank you all. All right, now a second, before we adjourn. I'd like to have someone, I'd entertain a motion for the members of the committee to indicate whether they support the draft ordinance as proposed. And your vote on this will be instructed to our colleagues. And if you choose to abstain, it's all right. There's no shame in that, because that's where we are in the process. So, would someone make a motion to do that, please?
I'll move that this, as individuals, we vote on whether or not we individually favor this ordinance as we are forwarding it to the Public Works Committee.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second for this?
Second.
Okay. Duly noted. Motion and seconder. All right. All in favor of the motion, which addresses the content of this, please say aye, or please indicate their vote. And those opposed? And I don't think that leaves anybody from abstaining, right? Everybody's accounted for? So be it. I mean, that's just very instructive and very helpful. Is there any other new business that we would like to bring up before we adjourn? Well, then I have a motion to adjourn.
So
Please. Second?
Second.
Again, thank you to John Amaryllis, our cameraman, and this meeting is adjourned.